All right, guys, welcome to 24 Floors Up, and we've got a very special guest today. We've got Randall Chestnut, and we're going to be talking about what he does, what he can offer you, and we're even more excited because he has a podcast of his own, so I think it's going to be very exciting for everybody. And I'm going to turn it over to Randall. If you just introduce yourself, please, and tell us who you are, what you do.
Wow. So, anytime anybody asks you that, it's like, do you want my 5-year-old version when I was a teenager, the one that I wish I could erase, or do you want I'll give you a quick rundown.
Start when you were a young boy.
Yeah, I'll give you when I
Tell me about myself.
That is the hardest question to answer, right? When you ask somebody such a open-ended question, because it gives them room to say stuff you really don't want to hear.
All right, I got that question asked today, in fact, and they said, "Tell me a little bit about yourself." And I said, "Well, I like long, quiet walks on the beach." And they're like, "Shut up,
I'm a water sign. No,
Please,
in all seriousness aside, I'm sure you're asking more about the professional side of
Sure.
where I would say, and that's debatable if I'm even professional at that. Growing as a kid, there wasn't this entrepreneurship term wasn't thrown around like it is now. Like everyone's an entrepreneur,
right?
You from a YouTuber to the lemonade stand,
right.
and it's true, they are. I mean, anybody who goes out on their own and does something like that. But back when I was a kid, I had a lawn care business. I didn't even know it. It was just my dad was the type of dad that said, "You can have anything you want, son, as long as you pay for it."
Right.
I'm like, "Well, great. So that's good. So how can I get paid?" And he goes, "Well, you can figure that out."
Right.
And I had a lawnmower, and I had people who didn't want to mow their yard, so I started doing that. Shell moved their corporation here to Houston, and in my neighborhood, they built 50 rental homes, and they asked me if I would be the one to mow them. I'm like, "Sure." So I immediately got 50 new clients and became an unknown entrepreneur.
50
and then
new clients.
50.
Wow.
50 new homes. And then they ended up asking me to do the flower beds and then to water them in the summer. So it started becoming more money.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, I was wanting to keep it all for myself, but I just couldn't keep up. So I told my friends, "Hey, I get paid 25. I'll give you 10. I'll keep 10. You can have the 15." And they agreed to do it. So
Wow.
I was mowing 5 yards a day. They were mowing 5 yards a day, and we kind of rotated it through, and then we would water them, and we got paid for that. So it was good. And then puberty set in. And being a male, what happens when puberty sets in? Well, you get more interested in females.
Yeah.
And
Side effect.
Yeah, that's just about it, good or bad. It happens.
It's just an obstacle.
Yeah, it's just a slight obstacle.
Yeah.
And those things weren't as in the savings that I had. I didn't have anymore because you blew through it, and I kind of lost. My way, so to speak. I don't want to say it in a negative sense, but I just didn't focus on that. It wasn't important. It was girls that were important. And I graduated high school, and my dad told me, "Look, you got three days to find a place to live." And I'm like, "Well, I'm the only son, and my mom runs the house, so I'll just go to mom, and she'll overrule that because everyone knows mom rules the house."
Right.
And when it comes to decisions,
Mama loves her little boy.
Yeah, and she said no. And I went, "What?" So I did what anybody else had left. I joined the Army, and I became an intelligence analyst, which I thought was some spy stuff. It wasn't.
Okay.
It was just like any other job in the military. It's like, you do what I tell you to do, like take out the trash. And
They have a good marketer.
They do have very good marketing, but all truth aside, it really did. I learned a lot back then, and I learned all about Russian weapons. I went to Fort Huachuca, Arizona, and my commanding officer was Captain Michael Flynn, who you probably heard that name recently.
Yeah.
So back in 1987, he was my commander then, and I learned all about Russian ZSUs, from missile radars to tanks, T-42s, and all of that, and all the fighting and all the different tactics, and that was fun. But again, I was 19 years old, and women were still at the top of my list on the things that I cared the most about. And I got out of the Army, and I said, "I don't know what I want to do." And my buddy was like, "Well, I'm a flight attendant, and there's a lot of girls, and you go all over the world." And I'm like, "I'm in." And unknowing to me, I guess my brain developed enough that I got interested back into, like, I need to own my own business. It was just inside of me.
Right.
And I would sit at a flight, and it looks like Ashley came on.
Hey, Ashley.
And I would write out a plan. And every time I would finish serving the drinks, the guy is like, "What would you like to drink?" Going through. And I wrote out a plan. I'm like, I'm going to leave. And then one day that opportunity showed up, and I wrote a letter to him and said, hey, I'm out. And I started doing that, and I was in real estate, and I hadn't looked back yet. And I've had a lot of bad times and a lot of good times. But collectively, it's all good.
Yeah.
That's good.
So that's a little bit rushed too. I know they probably told you a little more than you needed to know, but
Well,
that was it.
We'll get.
We all love a good story.
Right.
Yeah.
And we'll definitely touch back on some of those things. But I'd like to talk a little bit about or introduce the sponsors of the podcast really quickly. And before I introduce this podcast, introduce the sponsors, I'm going to give a couple of shout outs to some other sponsors. One is Lost in Space Films for post-production of the podcast sound and audio.
Great work.
Well, thank you, sir. And so shout out to Lost in Space. And first off, the first podcast sponsor is Digital Selling Conference. And we have Patrick Weir. If you would just tell us a little bit about Digital Selling Conference, please.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. I know last time I got a little long-winded, so I'll keep it short and brief. Digital Selling Conference, I shared with you what that's about. It's essentially a one-day event to provide an experience for sales, marketing professionals, and entrepreneurs, an educational experience to learn about the latest emerging digital technology platforms to be able to utilize and grow your business. We're talking about artificial intelligence, we're talking about content marketing analytics, we're talking about LinkedIn strategies, and some of the digital marketing technologies that you'll talk about with you use in your own business. And that's going to be February 15th, 2019 in Galveston, Texas. We're really looking forward to it.
Excellent. Thank you, Patrick. And next we have the next podcast sponsor, which is Unbiased Data. And Gary Dennis is going to tell us a little bit about Unbiased Data.
Sure. Unbiased Data, it's a data analytics and management consulting company combined. And the analytics that we're looking at right now is perception analytics. So what we're doing is helping our clients understand what their clients and their employees really think about their business. And so we'll do interviews and surveys, collect data. Our data analysts will analyze that data, and our business consultants will make a business recommendation based on the data. So that's the consulting side. If you're a small business and want free business content, check out my site at GaryLDennis.com.
Thanks, Gary. And final podcast sponsor is D-Man Training Technologies. D-Man Training, representing that, Jerry. And what we provide is sales training and marketing consulting for healthcare companies, small to medium-sized healthcare companies. And our focus is on digital selling. So thanks, everyone, and let's get back to the podcast. We're here at 24 floor, station identification, 24 floors up. Oh, yeah, you're right. I forgot. Digital Selling Conference has something special to talk about today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so what we want to do is we want to give away 2 Astros tickets for a week from tomorrow, which would be September 22nd against the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Is that your local team?
No, but Chicago and Houston.
That's right, you're a Chicago.
I'm going to get killed now.
Anyhow,
I'm going to spit this out one of these times.
Yeah. Anyhow, so the contest is this. We want you to be able to qualify for the tickets. We want you to like, share, and tag 2 of your friends to qualify for these tickets. And this contest is going to run from right now until next Friday's edition of 24 Floors Up, where we'll give away the tickets live on air. And you can be anywhere, but you got to be in Houston to be able to grab them from me. So that's the contest. We're giving away 2 free Astros tickets for a week from tomorrow night, September 22nd, against the Angels, last homestand of the regular season for the Astros. Digital Selling Conference wants to give away 2 tickets for that game.
That's
so
like,
share, and tag 2 of your friends to be eligible for the contest.
And that has to be done on the
Facebook page,
Facebook
right
page,
here,
right?
where you guys, if you're looking at this angle right here, then you're looking at the right page, the Facebook Digital Selling Conference page.
Do I qualify? Can I do that?
You can try.
Okay, I'm
You can try, but you won't get voted in.
like, share, tag 2 friends. That will be done this year.
Yeah.
All right. So there's going to be a post.
I think we got one entrant right here.
So there's going to be a
just
post
trying to share it.
about it, and that specific post needs to be liked, shared, and tagged. So
That's right.
We'll get that
and
up.
we'll share this information again for you throughout the next 7 days. So
all right, good deal.
Carry on.
Thanks, Patrick.
Yeah.
All right, so back to Russell. Could you tell us a little bit about
Randall.
Sorry, Randall.
I get it all the time.
Sorry.
I wouldn't mind being Russell Brunson now.
Well, we were talking so much about
Yeah, I
him
know.
earlier,
Yeah.
so it's just
Yeah.
kind of. Anyway, Randall. So on your website, there's a beautiful. I'd say it's an infographic, and it's a pathway, 9-step process. Could you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah. So when I created that, like most things, most entrepreneurs create things because they
Right.
needed it.
Right.
And you'll usually find when someone has created something to solve a problem that they have, that it usually does really well in the marketplace because there's usually a lot of other people that have that. Sorry about that. Got a really good one there. That's what happens when you talk fast.
It's okay.
He told me to do it.
little rib
Hey,
tickler.
it's payback because I feel like I was set up with it. Everybody's all dressed nice in here. Just dress casual, Randall.
I got jeans on, guys.
Yeah.
So.
Are you
So
sure you even have that?
I really came up with the concept just out of sheer need for my own businesses, and like many people, I resisted the urge with this 9-step process, right? It's just really setting up a marketing campaign, and the first step in the marketing campaign is just figuring out who are you talking to and what are you trying to fix for that specific person. And I don't know how many times I'd heard that message before, and I just didn't do it. And I kept wondering, well, why am I not connecting with people, or why is it so hard to find people, or why is it so hard for them to understand that I have something that is super valuable? But then if you ask enough questions, you find out, well, the reason that they don't want it because they don't need it. I'm talking to the wrong person. So, developing out starting from that premise, I'm like, well, maybe I need to start working on that. And it actually started working. That when I actually sat down and said, well, who is my customer? Who is it? And then when you understand that it's a certain individual, like they play golf, they listen to Dan Patrick and Sean Hannity and all of these things, it makes it so much easier for you to communicate with that person because they have beliefs and they have feelings about things that maybe the person who watches or is a more liberal leaning than you.
Can you share, if you don't mind me asking,
Yeah.
can you share your thought process? Because, you read different marketing books, you hear different marketing experts talk about, well, you got to have an avatar, you got to come up with a persona. And then, so I imagine there's kind of a thought process you go through for coming up with that.
Yeah, that's a great question. Because what we commonly do is we start imagining that we're that person, but we're not always our client.
Right.
So what happens is when and we've all done it, and I've done it more times than I'd like to claim, is that when you're building out who your audience is, you start answering the questions. Like, yeah, I would, unknowingly. Like, would they or would they not? And when you could just easily look at, especially if you already have a database to go to, you can start looking at, like, what are their commonalities? Like, wow, well, most of these people are conservative. Most of these people do go to these functions, or I met them at a function in which, maybe it was a golf outing. Well, for sure they like golf because they were at a golf outing.
Right.
And start looking, and then you'll start seeing, well, yeah, but that's not something that I would do, but I'm not my ideal
my
client.
customer. Right. Yeah.
Right.
Like if you sold cigars, maybe you don't smoke cigars. You don't. It's not a requisite that you smoke cigars to sell them.
Right.
Or it definitely helps.
Yeah. Sure.
Right.
So the thought process is twofold. If you don't have any data, which I really like to, data is something that any entrepreneur, it's like gold if you understand how to interpret data.
Sure.
It's like that's why we want more data. Like if somebody tells you your product sucks, that's data.
Right.
And if enough people tell you your product sucks, then you probably should listen.
Right.
And figure out what it is that sucked and fix it.
So you'd say, like the saying goes, that any news is good news. Any data is good data.
A good data in the way that if it's actionable stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And the source of the data. So it could be garbage in, garbage out if it's not.
Great point. Yeah. So
Fake news and all that.
Hey, speaking of fake news, if you get a chance, there's a guy by the name of Ryan Holiday. He wrote a book called "Trust Me, I'm Lying."
Okay.
He told me about that.
Secrets of the Media Manipulator.
All right.
I think when people would read that book or listen to the book, whichever way you go, I think you'll have a different understanding of how the media actually works and understand the media is just a business.
Right.
And the media sells bad news.
Right.
They
They
rarely
sell what gets eyeballs and ears.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
What's sensational?
It's just
There
bait.
you go. And
Yeah.
it doesn't. And what they say isn't always a lie. It's just how you say
Say
it,
it. Right.
or what is omitted.
Right.
Lie by omission, right?
Right.
But back to your question. The thought process is really first is understanding that you're not your customer sometimes, and majority of the time. I mean, if you're a lawyer and you wanted to do divorce law, and you decided you want to work on the female side, well, there is no way that you could really understand that side. So you need to more understand what are their needs that are different than the male side. That the male's wondering how much do I have to pay, and the female's wondering how much do I get. The male's wondering how often can I see my kid, and the female's saying how often do I drop my kid off, and all of those. So there's variances. So that's say what one was. You have to understand that.
Okay.
Did I answer your question on that one?
Yeah, and it brought up a thought. So you mentioned Russell Brunson earlier, and so I actually got it. I finally got .com Secrets, and I read Expert Secrets previously, but when I started last night, he was talking about you want to find your dream customer, like
Yes.
the customer that you want to work with. What are your thoughts?
That was the next thing. So it's
Yeah.
like you may not be your dream customer. So
Right.
you stole the thunder part there. Is really is
Come on. Man.
being able to
Be nice to
no.
the guests.
If you go into any business, whether it being consulting for business strategies or events or whatever it is, who would be the ideal person that you would work with? What would they look like? How much money would you expect that they would have to pay you over a course of a time? And that it gives you a good place to start when you have no idea. Well, who would you want? I mean, if your service is $10,000 a month, well, you usually can't go to somebody who's a startup business because very
don't
few
have
of them
right.
have it.
Yeah.
Right.
And if it is a startup, then they're going to be a startup that has funding. And then if they have funding, those VCs usually are going to have people that they already want to connect them to. So it's a hard road.
So what I'm hearing from you is create a buyer persona or a snapshot of what that particular person looks like based on what your product is. And
Yeah.
can they afford it? What kind of people can afford it, and breaking it down that way, and then you can develop your marketing strategy from there.
I mean, and the thing is that don't seem obvious on the surface, like literally. And who does a great job at this is Entrepreneur on Fire, John Dumas.
I read that one, man.
It's a free. You can go through it. I think he does it, and where he breaks down his avatar. He said, my avatar is somebody who goes to work. They commute to work on average 30 minutes. They're married. They have kids. They work as a professional. They make about $150,000. And
Very detailed.
Very detailed.
Right.
But now think about when you're speaking to them and you build out a marketing campaign. Do you get frustrated sitting in traffic all day? Now you got to go home and your wife forgot to pick up the kid and take them to soccer practice.
Right.
So now you spend all day at work and you're expecting to come home and watch the baseball game, and now you have to go pick your son or your daughter up. He's like, you see
Very
how
relatable at that point.
Honesty, that person is like, that's me.
That's me.
That's what you want someone to say, that's me. I feel that frustration, or that's it. And the only way you can do that is understand everything about them.
Right.
I mean, that's why people go to great lengths to gather data. The recent with Facebook when they had the data breach with analytics.
Right.
Is why they wanted data so bad, and why people like Manafort and all of these political hacks. It's data. It's like, if I can know everything about you, I can know how I can sway you. What is important to you?
Right.
Maybe what's important to you isn't important to me.
Right.
So I need to be able to know who I'm talking to and what message best resonates. So if I can give you a great example, and I learned it yesterday.
Sure.
At a conference that I spoke at.
IS, right?
Yes. They had Marty.
Hold on a
Go ahead.
second. It was a conference that you spoke at and you learned there.
I did, because
Okay.
I listened. I mean, it's like everything else,
Right.
You see people there that are skilled at things that you're not.
Right.
I'm only skilled at a couple of things, and everything else I'm like, I need to hire people like you and people like you and him. I wish I could be good at everything, but I just can't. There's not enough time in the day.
Right.
It's not that I couldn't, because I think that I'm capable of learning anything. It's just would I enjoy it.
Right.
The guy's name was Marty. I don't remember his last name, but he broke down in detail the process because his agency worked with Nike on a couple of projects, and he broke down the Colin Kaepernick. If you don't know, where have you been on the Nike situation?
Buried under
right?
the dirt under
yeah.
a rock.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and you didn't get stepped on by a Nike shoe.
Nice.
And he broke down what their decision-making process on a go or not go. And he opened it up and he said, just remember that they're a corporation and they're in the business of making money.
Right.
They're not in the business of giving people hugs or anything. They make money.
Right.
They have shareholders
Right.
that care about making money. And then they have investment bankers and all those people that revolve around that don't care about all that.
Right.
So he said, he went through and he broke down all the analytics. He used Facebook because it was his most powerful. And he went step by step and broke down the personas of Nike's, and the numbers were huge. And he said, nowhere in there do you see any conservatives, liberal. It was such a small number, it wasn't significant enough. And they took the data, and I'm regurgitating this after a whole afternoon of other people, but basically he walked it through step by step, and Nike knew with almost 100% certainty it was going to be a good deal for them. They knew that they were going to get the backlash. But they knew that also, and like you said, any news is good news as long as it's not, sexual harassment. Then that's bad news. But and broke it down and showed them, look, just in media buys alone, and I know that they already got 40+ million in media coverage for free if they were to buy that. And I think they paid him somewhere around 40 million over time. I didn't give them all at once, so.
Right. Yeah.
Money. So just right there, they already got their money
back. Right.
And then they seen this huge spike in sales, 30%
Right.
spike, and then when it came back down, obviously, and now it is leveled off. But the level off point is higher than the level off point that it previous was, which they already predicted, which you were talking about, which was this perception in the data. Did I get it again?
Perception analytics.
Yeah, analytics. Yeah. The perception analytics is understand. Once you can understand who your customer is, you know what you can and can't say to these people. I mean, if somebody's highly liberal, if you just start the name Trump, they're going to hate you.
Right.
And vice versa the other way.
Yeah.
So, God, I went so long-winded. I think I forgot what I was answering.
That's a great time to maybe break in and have a little station identification.
Sure.
I think because we're about 20 minutes in.
Right.
And then we'll jump back and let's talk about the Think Like a Marketer show. And I don't know if we really got into the 9-step process.
I can
but,
run
we
those
could
in a
talk
second.
all day long.
Yeah,
right?
we could. Yeah, I know we got it.
We've only got a few more minutes, but once again, this is 24 Floors Up, and thanks to everyone for joining. We've got a very special guest. We've got. Just want to say Russell. So
hey, man, I'll take it.
This is Russell Branson's brother.
Yeah, Russell Branson's like, where's my check, brother?
We've got Randall Chestnut, and Randall, he hasn't gone through the 9-step process, but it's just amazing just hearing step 1. And you can find it all on his website, and also he's got a podcast, Think Like a Marketer Show. And we've got the podcast sponsors, Digital Selling Conference, digitalsellingconference.com, Unbiased Data, and D-Man Training Technologies. And make sure you go to any of the websites on Digital Selling Conference, because there is